I recently had Freeway Ricky Ross on the show. Mm-hmm. He's a regular guest as well. He was one of the biggest drug dealers on the West Coast.
Right.
And he said something very interesting, because his plug, the guy that was, supplying him all of his cocaine, ended up being a government informant, took the stand against him, and got him convicted for life in prison.
Right.
He ultimately ended up finding a loophole and getting out after 20 years. And I asked him, what would you do if this guy who got you life in prison walked in this room right now? He said, absolutely nothing. What would happen if he walked in the room right now?
Oh, nothing.
Nothing.
I have absolutely nothing against him.
Really?
Nah. Wasn't his fault. See, the way I look at it is, first of all, I made the mistake of getting in the drug business. That was my first mistake. Mm-hmm. My next mistake was I went back into the drug business after I said I quit.
Yeah.
So what he did is he only did what people do in the drug business. They tell. They set you up. And for somebody to go into the drug business and not understand that, which I was in the drug business and didn't understand it, but I came to grips with it.
That's a very mature attitude.
Yeah. You have this whole, during the, the drama that's unfolding around the whole Tekashi, trial and everything else like that, the main guy, Shadi, I guess, addressed the court and said, we don't bend, we don't break, we don't fold. It's Treyway saying that no one's going to say anything. Well, now one of their main guys is already told. How often do people tell when they get into these serious situations? Is it almost all the time, or is it half the time? How many people really stick to these street codes and actually stand up and sit down and do their time?
Very few. Yeah, very few. The majority of people are going to do what's in their own best interest. You do have your hardcore holdouts like a George Williams.
George Williams isn't telling anybody.
He's going to just do his time. I mean, he's
which is life.
Which is life.
Okay.
And but contrary to popular belief, snitching's very common, and it happens all the time. And we rely on it in law enforcement, obviously, and we exploit it whenever we can. But more often than not, people under those circumstances are going to do what's in their own best interests. And if they think that cooperating, and most of the time it is in their best interest, they take advantage of it.
90% of the time?
I'd go 75.
Okay, that's actually lower than I thought.
Yeah, I'd go 75.
75% of the time people told. Because, I recently interviewed Lil D, Daryl Reed. Are you familiar with his story at all?
No.
Daryl Reed was the crack king of Oakland. And he was a millionaire by 18. Mm-hmm. And by 20, he got picked up by the feds. And he got sentenced to 35 years. And he did not cooperate at all. Right. At the point he got locked up, he said that he knew this was coming. He was prepared for the repercussions. They went through his ledgers. He said, I don't know who these people are. He did his 35 years. He ended up doing 28 years, and he got clemency from Obama to get like 3 years off his sentence. Okay. But, to this day, he feels like he did the right thing. Mm-hmm. He feels like not telling, he was offered witness protection, relocation, everything else like that. He turned it all down. Mm-hmm. He actually went and did 28 years.
It was those conversations with my older partners who told me, man, you jump off the porch, you get caught up for whatever you choose to do, you gotta accept the consequences, because if you tell, we gonna kill you. See, that's the cloth I come from up under. I come up under a different cloth. And so I heard guys say to me like, man, how can you do all that time? It wasn't a choice. I didn't have no option. Didn't nobody make me do what I did. I did it because I chose to do it, so I had to accept what came with that,
You hardly ever see that.
Yeah, he's obviously stood by his own ethical convictions, and those principles that he thought were important. You know, you start looking at, you know, your life time frame. You know, you're in your 20s,
Yeah.
and you know that you can get out when you're 45. You still think that, okay, I can get out, and maybe I've got money stashed, whatever. I can do that time. But, you know, if you're a Suge Knight and you're, you know, looking at you're 45, whatever, 50, in bad health, and, you know, you start to face your own mortality, and to think that you would never get out, that you're going to die in prison, that's a different pill to swallow. So all these guys have to take into consideration what, you know, what's it like for them? It's
Right.
an individual decision.
And, you know, you mentioned, you know, you'll have some money when you get out. When I interviewed both Little D and Freeway Ricky, they both said that.
And when you get all that time, you have to trust somebody. You got to let people hold money. You got to let people have your properties in their names. And majority of the guys that you will have a conversation with that did a bunch of those years, throughout those years, family and friends, they gonna spend that money, man. Because they feel like you don't need it though. Like in their mind, they say, all you need is some money to go to the commissary and get on the phone.
Absolutely.
Same thing with you?
Same thing.
Same thing.
Identical stories.
Identical. Yeah. So all these people that are getting locked up who think that their
Good
relatives
fortune, media.
and their homies are going to hold on to that $500,000 in cash and that
And-
property and those cars when you
know
come
what?
out.
And when you doing it, you're thinking like you're gonna accumulate this stuff, and when you come home, you'll have that.
Yeah. But when you came out, you had nothing.
Nothing.
Do you see this type of thing happen?
Yeah. I think it's hard to hold on. That's whoever out there is protecting your money. There's a lot of temptation for them, and
Yeah.
you know, I can see that they'd be like, "Oh, he's locked away for 15 more years, and I'll work this money and make it right at the end." Whatever, who knows? You know, another great, you know, kind of illustration of that was David Mack, the dirty LAPD cop who robbed the bank for, you know, $750,000.
Yeah.
And went to jail. Money is never recovered. You know, and when he got out, there's always been a presumption that he had that money buried, and you know, made a life for himself with it. I don't know if that's the truth or not,
Yeah.
or whether it got all pilfered away. Who knows?
Yeah, because you never really heard from him again once he got out.
Right.
He's out now, right?
Yeah, he's been out for a long time.
Yep. You know, one of the things that you heard also coming out of the whole Tekashi thing is that he's having to beef up his security, like with his mother. And his daughter's mother has went on video and said that she feels her life is in danger because of his telling,
Right.
you know, on the 9 Trey Bloods. How often do you see witnesses, well, you know, obviously he can't get killed in prison, but, or whatever holding facility he's in, but his mother, his daughter, his, you know, daughter's mother is still out there. How often do you see the family of witnesses, of cooperating, you know, witnesses get killed or hurt or something of that sort?
Very, very rarely. Yeah,
Really?
Very rarely. It's not, street gangs aren't like organized crime. Obviously in organized crime you see that type of stuff historically. Street gangs aren't really like that. If, you know, if you've crossed somebody on the street, their beef's with you directly. And, you know, it's just a different way of doing business. But in my experience, as a homicide investigator and dealing with gangs my entire career, it's very rare that they go beyond the personal dispute and extend it or translate it, you know, over to a family member.
How often does the person themselves get killed?
Rarely also. You know, unless it's a gang, you know, if, you know, these gangs, you know, they involve themselves in an activity that is violent and dangerous. So gang members get killed all the time.
Right, because, you know, clearly if Tekashi was not around, his co-defendants' cases would be a whole lot easier on them.
Right.
You know, you have a person who's at the scene,
Right.
clearly associated, offering all the information
Right.
that he that he's being asked of,
Right.
not holding anything back so he could lessen his own sentence because he's never done any prison time.
But But you have to take into consideration also that by doing that, by taking that action, you're now exposing yourself to bigger problems should you be detected. It's not easy, always to either yourself or to conspire to commit murders and not have to, suffer the consequences of doing that. So those are considerations.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe by eliminating Tekashi, we're better off, but at the same time, are we compounding the problems we already have should it be discovered we did that?
Right, because clearly, if that happens, they're going to be the chief suspects.
Right.
So now you have a murder on top of all the drug dealing and everything else like that, and the gun charges and everything else like that. Yeah. I mean, we'll see what happens. We'll see if they end up taking it to trial.
Yeah.
They'll whether, how much Tekashi will get in terms of time himself. It's a crazy story, but I think it's a very important lesson that is being shown to everybody that, trying to get involved in all this gang shit just so you can sell a few more albums is clearly not worth it.
And what's kind of surprising to me is that, this lesson's been learned over and over and over, or should have been learned over and over. They look at the history of that particular environment or musical genre and some of the problems that have taken place. I mean, there's been so many rappers that have either been killed or gone to prison, or, it's just it's a culture that's not all that healthy, in respect to those things.